The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched far beyond what human eyes could comfortably see. 17 different species sat in their designated platforms, each elevated to show their importance in the galaxy. The air smelled strange, a mixture of chemicals that allowed all these different beings to breathe in the same space. Day One stood in the center, alone on the speaking platform that seemed designed to make whoever stood there feel small and insignificant. He had been a soldier once, back when humanity first reached for the stars. Now he wore diplomatic robes, but his eyes still carried that sharp awareness of a man who understood battlefields. Beside him, though several steps behind, as protocol demanded, stood Hyjin. She carried a data tablet, but Day One knew she had memorized every important detail already. She always did. Supreme Chancellor Vorthok rose from his seat. His species looked like insects that had grown to the size of humans, with multiple eyes that glittered in the chamber's light. When he spoke, his voice came through translators that made it sound cold and mechanical. Human Ambassador, the Council has reached its decision. Your species has been expanding too quickly, taking worlds that do not belong to you. We have been patient, but your kind does not understand patience. Day One kept his face neutral, though his jaw tightened slightly. Hyjin noticed, but nobody else in the chamber would have caught such a small sign. Honorable Chancellor, Day One said, his voice calm and respectful. Humanity has only settled on worlds that were uninhabited. We have followed every rule of the Galactic Charter. Another council member laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. It was Krelther, the War Marshal. His species stood on 4 legs and had scales that looked harder than steel. Rules made by us human. Rules we can change when lesser species grow too bold. The insult hung in the air. Day One did not react, but Hyjin's fingers tightened around her tablet. Vorthok continued, the Council's decision is final. Humanity will surrender 40% of your colonies. You will cease all expansion beyond your current borders. You will reduce your military fleet by half and allow Council inspectors to ensure compliance. You have 30 days to accept these terms, and if we refuse? Day One asked quietly. Then the 17 species of this council, with our combined fleets of over 50,000 warships, will remove the human infection from the galaxy. Your species has been among the stars for barely 200 years. We have ruled for 10,000. Do you truly wish to test our patience further? Day One looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of each council member who would look at him. Most seemed bored, as if this was already decided. Some looked amused, like they were watching an animal do a clever trick. Only a few seemed uncomfortable, but they remained silent. I need to consult with my government, Day One said. You have 48 hours, Vorthok replied. After that, we will assume your answer is refusal, and we will act accordingly. This session is concluded. The platform beneath Day One's feet began to lower, taking him down and away from the council's sight. When he and Hyjin finally reached the private corridor that led to their transport, she let out a breath she had been holding. They're really going to do it, she whispered. They're going to declare war on us. Yes, Day One said simply. He walked quickly now, his diplomatic calm falling away. Contact Admiral Taeyang immediately. Use the red channel, encryption level maximum. Tell him the council has taken the bait. Hyjin stopped walking for a moment, surprised. Sir? Day One turned to look at her, and for the first time since entering the council chamber, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Did you really think our expansion was accidental, Hyjin? We've been watching the council for 50 years. We knew they would react exactly like this. Arrogant, predictable, and absolutely certain of their superiority. But they have 50,000 ships, Hyjin said, her voice uncertain. Our entire fleet is barely 8,000. Numbers are not everything in war, Day One replied. Humanity learned that lesson many times in our history. Besides, they think they know our capabilities. They have absolutely no idea what we've actually built. They reached their transport ship, a small vessel that seemed primitive compared to Council designs. Once inside and secure, Day One moved to the communication system. Hyjin began entering the codes for the Red Channel, the secret military line that bypassed all normal diplomatic channels. Within minutes, Admiral Taeyang's face appeared on the screen. He was an older man with gray hair and a face marked by years of service. Ambassador Day One. I take it the Council made their move? They gave us 30 days to surrender 40% of our territory and reduce our fleet by half. When we refuse, they'll attack with overwhelming force, expecting quick victory. Taeyang nodded slowly. And Project Chimera? Activate all phases immediately. The Council believes we're primitives playing with advanced technology we barely understand. Let them continue believing that until their fleets are committed. Director Young-suk has authorization to release all restricted weapons. Understood. We'll be ready. Taeyang paused, then added, They truly have no idea, do they? None, Day One confirmed. They think we've been scrambling to build defenses. They don't realize we've been preparing for this war since the day we joined their council. Every treaty, every technology exchange, every diplomatic mission has been gathering intelligence and building weapons they can't imagine. The transmission ended. Hyjin looked at her superior with new understanding and perhaps a touch of fear. We wanted this war. No, Day One corrected her. We knew this war was inevitable. The Council has destroyed 3 other rising species in their history. They couldn't allow humanity to grow strong enough to challenge them. So we prepared. We let them think us weak, let them grow confident, let them commit to a war they believe will be easy. He looked out the viewport at the Council station, growing smaller behind them. They're about to learn what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire existence fighting to survive. Their ship turned toward human space, carrying the message that would start the war. Behind them, the Council celebrated their coming victory, completely unaware that they had just made a decision that would lead to their own destruction. The Council's first strike came exactly on schedule, just as human intelligence had predicted. 15 human colonies across the Outer Rim detected incoming fleets simultaneously. The Council wanted to demonstrate their power, to crush human resistance in one overwhelming blow that would make surrender the only logical choice. Admiral. Taeyang watched the tactical display from the command center. Buried deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, thousands of red markers representing. Council ships moved toward blue markers, showing human positions. By pure numbers, it looked like certain defeat. His staff watched nervously, but Taeyang remained perfectly calm. Enemy fleet composition? He asked. A young officer responded immediately. Exactly as predicted, sir. Mostly standard cruisers and destroyers with battleship support. They're using traditional formation patterns, likely expecting our forces to engage directly. Good. They still don't believe we're a real threat. Captain Ji Woo, status of the Indomitable? On another screen, a woman in her 30s appeared. Ji Woo sat in the captain's chair of humanity's most advanced warship, though from the outside, it looked like an ordinary frigate. All systems green, Admiral. The quantum torpedo bays are loaded and ready. The Council ships have no idea we're here. Taeyang allowed himself a small smile. Then let's begin teaching them. All colonies, execute Protocol Serpent. Make them chase ghosts while our real strength prepares. Across 15 worlds, human defenders suddenly scattered. Ships that the Council expected to form defensive lines instead broke into small groups, racing in different directions. Planetary shields flickered on and off in seemingly random patterns. Distress signals flooded communication channels. making it sound like complete chaos and panic. The Council fleet commanders saw exactly what they expected to see: primitives falling apart under professional military pressure. Krelther, commanding the largest attack force personally, felt satisfaction as he watched humans flee before his ships. Pathetic. Pursue and destroy. I want every human vessel eliminated before sunset on their colonies. His fleet spread out, breaking formation to chase the scattering human ships. It was exactly what Taeyang had wanted them to do. Deep in a research facility on Mars, Director Young-suk walked between rows of weapons that officially did not exist. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Around her, scientists and engineers worked frantically to prepare systems that had been in development for decades. "Status report," she demanded. Her lead scientist, a nervous man named Hyun Woo, consulted his tablet. "The nanite swarms are ready for deployment. The quantum torpedoes exceeded expectations in testing. The cyber warfare packages have already infiltrated 60% of Council ships through their own communication networks. And the biological countermeasures are prepared, though I still think using them would be crossing a line we shouldn't cross. We'll use whatever we need to survive," Young-suk said flatly. "The Council came here to exterminate us. We're going to show them why that was a mistake." Begin deployment of the nanite swarms to Captain Ji-woo's location. Back in the Outer Rim, Ji-woo's ship drifted silently in the shadow of an asteroid. Her crew sat at their stations with the calm focus of people who had trained for this moment for years. The Council battleship Eternal Glory passed within weapons range, completely unaware of the human frigate hiding in its sensor shadow. "Target locked," her weapons officer reported quietly. "Fire quantum torpedo 1. Ji-woo ordered. The weapon launched silently in the vacuum of space. It was small, barely larger than a person, and it moved far faster than conventional missiles. The Council ship's point defense systems, designed to stop plasma missiles and kinetic rounds, didn't even detect it until impact. The quantum torpedo didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, it created a tiny sphere of disrupted spacetime that expanded for exactly 1.3 seconds before collapsing. When it collapsed, it took a 50-meter sphere of the battleship with it, simply erasing that section of matter from existence. The Eternal Glory's entire midsection vanished. Atmosphere vented. Power systems failed catastrophically. The ship broke apart, its front and back sections tumbling away from each other, torn apart by forces the Council had never encountered in warfare. Krelther's tactical display suddenly showed one of his battleships going dark. "Report. What happened to the Eternal Glory?" "Unknown, sir. It just broke apart. We're detecting no human ships in that sector." Before Krelther could respond, 3 more of his ships reported catastrophic system failures. Engines shut down without warning. Weapon systems refused to fire. Life support began cycling randomly. The invisible cyber warfare packages that Young-suk's teams had deployed were activating, causing chaos throughout the Council fleet. "This is impossible," Krelther growled. "Humans don't have this level of technology." But they did. For 200 years, every time humanity encountered alien technology, they hadn't just copied it. They had studied it, understood it, and improved upon it. Every diplomatic mission had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Every technology exchange had been carefully calculated to gain more than humanity gave. And humans, with their history of constant warfare among themselves, understood military innovation in ways the Council species have forgotten during their millennia of dominance. Ji-woo's ship fired again, this time at a cruiser. Another quantum torpedo, another ship broken apart. Her crew worked with efficient precision, targeting Council vessels that had separated from their formations to chase phantom human ships on Earth. Taiyang watched the battle develop with satisfaction. They're completely off balance. How many ships have we actually lost? 37, sir. The Council has lost over 300, with twice that number reporting significant damage or system failures. The ratio was devastating. For every human ship destroyed, nearly 20 Council ships were eliminated or disabled. And the battle had only just begun. At the main Council command center on Axiom Prime, Vorthok received reports with growing disbelief. This cannot be accurate. Check all data again. Humans are not capable of this level of resistance. But the data was accurate. Across all 15 battle zones, the story was the same. Council forces were being torn apart by weapons they had never seen, tactics they couldn't predict, and technology that shouldn't exist. The easy victory they had expected was turning into a nightmare. On the Indomitable, Ji Wu received new orders from Taiyang. Captain, begin Phase 2. It's time to stop hiding and show them what we really built. Ji Wu smiled. Her ship's systems began powering up to full capacity, and the stealth systems that had hidden them deactivated. Suddenly, Council sensors detected not one frigate, but an entire human battle group that had been hiding in the system, waiting for the perfect moment. All ships, Ji Wu broadcast to her fleet. Engage at will. Show them why attacking humanity was the worst decision they ever made. 20 human warships, each equipped with experimental weapons that made them more dangerous than Council battleships 3 times their size, began their attack. The quantum torpedoes fired in waves. Nanite swarms, invisible to sensors until too late, began eating through Council hull armor. And human ships moved with speed and precision that made the Council's formations look slow and clumsy by comparison. Krelther watched his fleet die and finally understood the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't been unprepared for this war. They had been waiting for it. Everything the Council thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. The primitives they had dismissed were actually predators who had been hiding their teeth, waiting for the right moment to strike. Retreat, he ordered, his voice hollow. All ships, retreat to fallback positions. But retreating from human space was going to be far harder than entering it had been. 3 months had passed since the Council's disastrous first strike, and the galaxy was learning to fear humanity. What should have been a quick extermination had become a war the Council was losing badly. Their fleets, once numbering 50,000 strong, had been reduced by nearly a third. Human losses were minimal by comparison, and worse. Humanity was going on the offensive. Commander Minho crouched in the shadows of a Council supply depot on the planet Thargan. His special operations team, 5 other soldiers dressed in black adaptive camouflage, waited for his signal. They had infiltrated deep behind Council lines, traveling in a stealth ship that didn't officially exist. Guard patrol passing in 30 seconds, whispered Jisoo, his second in command. She was monitoring the security systems through a hacked terminal, her fingers moving quickly across holographic controls. Minho nodded. This depot supplied 3 entire Council battle groups with fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. Once it was gone, those battle groups would be severely weakened. Humanity had learned long ago that you didn't just fight armies. You destroyed their ability to keep fighting. The patrol passed. Robotic sentries that scanned for threats with sensors designed to detect Council technology. They completely missed the humans using electromagnetic signatures that didn't match any known species. When the sentries were gone, Minho's team moved quickly to the main reactor facility. Sangwoo, their engineer, began placing charges with practiced efficiency. But these weren't ordinary explosives. Each charge contained a small canister of military-grade nanites, microscopic machines designed to disassemble matter at the molecular level. Once released, they would spread through the entire facility, eating through metal, concrete, and any electronic systems they encountered. Within hours, this massive supply depot would be reduced to dust. Charge is set, Sang-woo reported. Timer set for 2 hours. That should give us enough distance. They extracted quietly, leaving no trace they had been there. 2 hours later, when they were safely in orbit, Minho watched through the ship's sensors as the depot simply collapsed into itself, disintegrating as trillions of nanites consumed everything. 3 council battle groups suddenly found themselves stranded without supplies, easy targets for human hunter-killer fleets. Operations like this were happening across dozens of council worlds. Humanity was fighting a war without rules, using every advantage their history of brutal conflicts had taught them. The council species, used to formal battles between organized fleets, had no defense against human special forces who struck from nowhere and vanished like smoke. On Mars, Director Young-suk stood in her laboratory with Yoon-ji, the xenobiology expert who had made a disturbing discovery. Between them floated a holographic display showing the genetic structures of all 17 council species. "You're certain about this?" Young-suk asked. Yoon-ji nodded, her expression troubled. "Absolutely certain. All 17 species share common genetic markers indicating they evolved from a single ancestor species, probably through intentional genetic manipulation millions of years ago. That means they share fundamental biological similarities, including vulnerabilities." Young-suk studied the data carefully. "And you've developed a biological agent that could exploit these vulnerabilities?" "I've developed 3 different agents, actually. Each one could cause severe illness across all council species. One would be particularly devastating, causing neural degeneration that would be difficult to treat with their medical technology." Yoon-ji paused, then added, "Director, I need to say this clearly. Using biological weapons would make us no better than them. It crosses lines that shouldn't be crossed." "Noted and logged," Young-suk said. "Prepare all 3 agents for production anyway. I hope we never need to use them, but hope isn't a military strategy. If the Council forces us to choose between their survival and ours, I know which one I'm choosing." In Earth's command center, Admiral Taeyang reviewed reports from across all battlefronts. The news was overwhelmingly positive from humanity's perspective, devastating for the Council. He touched a control, bringing up a communication channel to his fleet commanders. "Attention all battle groups. We are initiating Operation Ragnarok. It's time to stop reacting to Council movements and start dictating the terms of this war. We have 50 target systems selected, all of them critical to Council logistics and command structure. We will hit all 50 simultaneously. Make it clear to every Council species that their war and extermination has become a fight for their own survival." Captain Ji-woo received her orders aboard the Indomitable. Her target was the primary shipyard complex in the Velterran system, where the Council built their largest warships. She had a battle group of 15 ships, facing orbital defenses designed to stop fleets 10 times that size. "They're not expecting us to actually attack their core systems," her tactical officer observed. "Intel shows they've pulled most of their defensive fleets forward to try to stop our advance in the outer territories." "Their mistake," Ji-woo said simply. "All ships, jump to Velterran on my mark. Weapons free upon arrival. Our primary target is the shipyard, but any Council military vessel is fair game. Mark." Space tore open as 15 human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel directly into the Velterran system. Alarms blared across the shipyard as defensive systems struggled to respond to the sudden attack. The battle was brutal but short. Human quantum torpedoes tore through defensive platforms that had stood for centuries. Nanite swarms released from missile warheads ate through the shipyard structure. And when Council reinforcements tried to jump in, they found human ships had mined the normal approach vectors with gravity weapons that collapsed their warp fields, leaving them stranded in normal space where human guns could tear them apart. Within 6 hours, the Veltaran shipyard, a construction facility that had built thousands of Council warships over the centuries, was nothing but expanding debris. 3 Council battleships and a dozen smaller vessels were destroyed trying to defend it. Human casualties, 2 frigates damaged, 0 ships lost. Across the galaxy, similar stories played out in 49 other systems. Humanity struck everywhere at once, and the Council couldn't respond fast enough. Their command structure, designed for managing controlled conflicts with established rules, couldn't adapt to total warfare conducted by a species that had been perfecting the art of killing for their entire existence. On Axiom Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vorthek called an emergency session. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council chamber felt fear. Representatives from all 17 species gathered, many looking shocked and desperate. "We must negotiate peace," declared Ambassador Thelris from the Vershani Collective. "Our losses are unsustainable. The humans are destroying our infrastructure faster than we can rebuild it." "Peace?" Krelther snarled, though his voice lacked its former confidence. "They are primitives. We gave them a chance to surrender with dignity, and they responded with this. This barbarism is defeating us," another Council member said quietly. "We miscalculated, badly." Vorthek sat in silence, watching his Council fracture. Messages were already coming in from individual species, asking about separate peace treaties with humanity. The united front he had built against the humans was crumbling. Finally, he spoke. "Prepare a message to the human leadership. We will discuss terms for a ceasefire." The message was sent through diplomatic channels. The response came back within hours, and it was not what the Council expected. Admiral Taeyang's face appeared on their screens, not Ambassador Day One. The diplomat was gone, replaced by the warrior. "There will be no ceasefire," Taeyang said flatly. "You declared a war of extermination against humanity. You wanted to remove us from the galaxy. Now you discover that we are very difficult to remove, and you wish to stop? No. This war ends when you surrender unconditionally, or when your species lack the capacity to threaten us ever again. Those are your only choices." The transmission ended. The Council sat in stunned silence, realizing they had created an enemy that would not stop, could not be reasoned with, and was thoroughly capable of making good on its threats. They had wanted to exterminate humanity to prevent them from becoming a threat to Council dominance. Instead, they had created the very monster they feared, and that monster was coming for them all. 8 months into the war, the Galactic Council was dying. What had begun as a unified attack by 17 species to eliminate humanity had fractured into desperate individual attempts at survival. 12 species had already surrendered separately to human forces. Begging for mercy, they had never intended to show humanity. Lieutenant Bahram walked through the ruins of New Hope Colony, one of the first human settlements the Council had attacked. She was part of the humanitarian corps, documenting war crimes for the historical record. Her camera captured everything: the destroyed homes, the burn marks where plasma weapons had been used on fleeing civilians, the mass graves where colonists had been executed rather than taken prisoner. "Over 3,000 dead here," she said into her recorder, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Mostly civilians." Evidence suggests the Council forces specifically targeted shelters where families were hiding. This wasn't war. This was attempted genocide. Her documentation was being broadcast across human space and to those Council species trying to negotiate surrender. Humanity wanted everyone to understand exactly what had been done and why humanity's response had been so merciless. There would be no forgiveness for the species that had led this attack. Admiral Ji-sung commanded the human fleets now pushing deep into Council home territories. He was younger than Taeyang, promoted rapidly due to his brilliant tactical mind and absolute ruthlessness when needed. His orders were clear. The 5 primary aggressor species would face total military destruction. Their fleets, their shipyards, their military infrastructure. Everything would be eliminated. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution, Jae-sung watched as his battle group systematically dismantled the orbital defenses around Crawler's homeworld. The War Marshal, who had commanded the initial attack on humanity, was about to watch his entire civilization reduced to a state where they could never threaten anyone again. "Sir, the War Marshal is requesting to speak with you," his communication officer reported. "Put him through," Jae-sung said coldly. Krelthar's image appeared, and the proud warrior who had boasted of crushing humanity looked broken. His scales were dull, his posture defeated. "Admiral, please. We surrender. We will accept any terms. Just spare our homeworld." "You should have thought of that before you attacked our colonies," Jae-sung replied. "Before you executed our civilians. Before you broadcast messages across the galaxy about how you would exterminate every human. Did you show mercy when we begged you to stop? No, you laughed at us. I was following orders. The Council decided together. And now you pay for those decisions together. Your military infrastructure will be destroyed. Your fleet is already gone. Your shipyards will be reduced to scrap. You will be allowed to keep one planet, your homeworld, and you will live under human oversight for the next century at minimum. Be grateful we're not doing to you what you tried to do to us." The transmission ended. Jae-sung turned to his weapons officer. "Continue bombardment of military targets. Ensure all shipyards and weapons facilities are completely destroyed. Avoid civilian casualties where possible, but our safety comes first." The attack continued with mechanical precision. Human ships, now vastly superior to anything the Council had left, picked apart defensive positions with minimal effort. Quantum torpedoes eliminated heavy installations. Nanite swarms consumed military bases. In 3 days, the War Marshal species was reduced from a major military power to a civilization that would take centuries to rebuild even basic defense capabilities. On Earth, the new human government was broadcasting the Council's crimes constantly. Every attack on human colonies, every civilian death, every intercepted communication where Council leaders discussed exterminating humanity completely. Public opinion across human space was absolutely unified. The Council species who started this war would pay a price that ensured they never thought about threatening humanity again. Director Young-suk watched the broadcasts from her facility on Mars. Next to her, Yoon-ji looked uncomfortable. "We're becoming what we fought against," Yoon-ji said quietly. "Look at what we're doing to their worlds." "We're dismantling military targets," Young-suk corrected. "We're not executing civilians in shelters. We're not bombarding cities. We're removing their ability to wage war, which is exactly what any intelligent species would do when faced with an enemy that tried to genocide them. But the biological weapons remain unused," Young-suk interrupted. "Despite having the capability to kill billions of Council citizens with a single deployment, we haven't used them. That shows more restraint than they ever showed us. Don't confuse justice with cruelty, Yoon-ji. What we're doing is ensuring our survival." In space near the planet Axiom Prime, the remnants of the Council fleet made their last stand. Supreme Chancellor Vorthek had convinced 5 species to join him in one final offensive, believing that a show of force might allow for better surrender terms. He had gathered every remaining warship, nearly 2,000 vessels, for a desperate attack on the human fleet, thought it was a catastrophic mistake. The human fleet, now numbering over 15,000 ships with more being built every day, met the Council's final offensive at a location humans would later name Terminus Gate. The battle lasted 4 hours. And it was completely one-sided. Human gravitational weapons, the newest terror in their arsenal, created localized gravity wells that crushed council ships like paper. Entire formations were collapsed into singularities that lasted only seconds, but were powerful enough to destroy everything nearby. The quantum torpedoes, now being produced in massive quantities, tore through council armor like it didn't exist. And the cyber warfare packages humanity had perfected meant that many council ships simply stopped functioning. Their own systems turned against them. When it was over, the council fleet was completely destroyed. Less than 100 ships managed to escape, and they were hunted down over the following days. Vorthic's flagship was captured intact when its engines mysteriously shut down. The Supreme Chancellor was taken into human custody, where he would eventually stand trial for war crimes. Captain Ji Woo led the fleet that surrounded Vorthic's homeworld. Her orders were specific: total blockade, no ships in or out, and the destruction of any military installation on the planet's surface. The species that had led the Council for millennia was about to learn what it meant to be powerless. They're broadcasting surrender on all channels, her communication officer reported, begging us to accept their capitulation. Log it officially, Ji Woo ordered, but maintain blockade until command determines appropriate terms. They wanted to make an example of humanity to keep other species in line. Now they become our example of what happens to those who threaten human survival. Around the galaxy, the remaining council species watched in horror as their leadership collapsed. The civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years were being systematically reduced to irrelevance by a species they had dismissed as primitives. The message was clear: humanity was now the dominant power, and they would not tolerate threats. Ambassador Day One, who had started this war by accepting the Council's ultimatum on behalf of humanity, now traveled to what remained of Council government. His role had come full circle, from diplomat seeking peace to diplomat dictating terms of surrender. He stood in the same Council chamber where he had been threatened 8 months earlier, but now it was nearly empty. Only 7 species remained, their representatives looking defeated and afraid. The others had already surrendered separately, or simply stopped responding to Council calls. Honorable Ambassador, one of them began weakly. We seek terms for. There are no negotiations, Day One interrupted. You will surrender unconditionally. You will accept human authority over Council space. You will submit to war crimes trials. Your military capabilities will be reduced to levels we determine appropriate. These are not terms for discussion. These are statements of fact. The war is over. You lost. The Council chamber, once filled with species confident in their superiority, was silent except for the quiet sounds of acceptance. The age of Council dominance had ended, destroyed by their own arrogance and humanity's refusal to die quietly. 1 year had passed since the Council declared war on humanity. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition, and historians would mark this as the moment when one age ended and another began. Ambassador Day One stood on the steps of what had once been the Council chamber on Axiom Prime. Behind him, construction crews were already dismantling the old symbols of Council authority, replacing them with something new. The building would become the headquarters of the reformed Galactic Assembly, a government structure designed by humans to prevent the kind of concentrated power that had led to this war. Vorthix species, the ones who had started everything, were confined to their homeworld. Their population had not been harmed, but their freedom was gone. Human monitoring stations orbited their planet, ensuring they developed no military technology beyond what was needed for basic defense. It would be 500 years before they were allowed to build spacecraft capable of leaving their system. They would spend centuries as a reminder of what happened to species that chose genocide. Krelther's people had suffered worse. The war marshal himself had died during the Battle of Terminus Gate, his flagship destroyed in the first wave of human gravitational weapons. His species had lost 90% of their population, not through human action, but through the collapse of their own civilization. Their economy had been entirely built around military production. When that was dismantled, their society simply fell apart. Famine, disease, and civil conflict killed far more than human weapons ever had. Some called it justice. Others called it tragedy. Day one called it inevitable. The other council species had survived with varying degrees of damage. Those who had surrendered early, who had played minimal roles in the attack on humanity, were allowed to maintain some autonomy. They would be part of the reformed assembly as equal members, though everyone understood that equal was a polite fiction. Humanity held the military power now, and that meant humanity held real authority. The 5 primary aggressors faced a different fate. Their military industries were destroyed, their fleets reduced to nothing, their governments restructured under human supervision. They would recover eventually, but it would take centuries, and they would do so under human oversight. Admiral Taeyang had retired after the war's end, satisfied that humanity's safety was secured. His replacement, Admiral Jae-sung, now commanded the largest military fleet in the galaxy. Human shipyards built new vessels constantly, maintaining a force that no combination of other species could challenge. The lesson of the war was simple. Never again would humanity be in a position where others could threaten their extinction on Mars. Director Young-suk oversaw the transformation of her weapons research facility into something new. The biological weapons Yoonji had developed remained locked away, never used, a secret kept by only a handful of people. But the other technologies humanity had developed were now being shared, carefully, with species that had proven themselves worthy of trust. "It's strange," Eunji said, standing beside Young-suk as they watched a presentation on uplifting technologies being given to the Talvari, a species that had surrendered immediately and helped humanity locate council military installations. "A year ago, we were developing weapons to kill them. Now we're giving them advanced technology. Because they made the right choice," Young-suk replied. "They saw the war was wrong and chose to help end it. That's the difference between them and the council leadership. We reward wisdom and punish arrogance. It's a simple system." Captain Ji-woo had been promoted after her successful campaigns. She now commanded the Home Defense Fleet, the ships that protected Earth and humanity's core systems. She didn't enjoy the peaceful duty as much as combat operations, but she understood its importance. Her ship, the Indomitable, was being refitted with even more advanced weapons, ensuring that humanity's home would never be vulnerable again. Commander Minho and his special operations teams had become almost legendary. They continued training, preparing for threats that might emerge, maintaining the skills that had allowed them to strike behind enemy lines so effectively. Humanity would never be caught unprepared again. Lieutenant Bahram's documentation of council war crimes had been compiled into a comprehensive historical record. It was taught in schools across human space, ensuring that future generations understood what had happened and why humanity had responded as they did. The recordings were also shared with other species. A warning and a promise. Humanity would defend itself without mercy against existential threats. In the reformed Galactic Assembly, new laws were being written. They reflected human perspectives on justice, power, and the responsibilities of advanced civilizations. Gone were the paternalistic rules that had allowed the Council to destroy rising species. In their place were principles designed to allow growth and development, while preventing any single group from dominating others. Ambassador Day 1, now first Speaker of the Assembly, guided this process carefully. He had learned during the war that humanity's strength came not just from weapons, but from their ability to adapt, to learn, and to build systems that worked. The new galactic government would reflect those strengths. Do you think they'll try again? Hygiene asked him one day as they reviewed proposals for new interspecies trade agreements. She was his chief of staff now, helping manage the complex politics of the reformed assembly. Some of them will always resent us, Day-One admitted. They remember when they ruled the galaxy, when they could destroy any species that grew too powerful. That resentment will last for generations. But will they act on it? He shook his head. Not for a very long time. We broke their military power too completely. By the time any of them could threaten us again, we'll be so far ahead technologically that it would be pointless to try. So we maintain dominance through superior force. Hygiene said thoughtfully. We maintain peace through superior force, the one corrected. There's a difference. The council wanted to rule. We just want to survive and thrive. If other species choose cooperation, they'll find us generous allies. If they choose conflict, he shrugged. Well, they've seen what happens then. On the anniversary of the war's start, a monument was built on Earth. The Reformation Monument, they called it. On its surface were inscribed the names of every human who had died during the Council's invasion. Nearly 50,000 names in total. It stood in Geneva, where the human government had coordinated the war effort. Day-One stood before it on the anniversary day, watching families place flowers at the base, touching the names of loved ones who had died defending humanity. A young alien diplomat, a Talvari named Shenra, approached him nervously. Her species had been elevated to junior membership in the assembly, a reward for their help during the war. First speaker, she said respectfully, may I ask you something? Of course. My people are studying the war, trying to understand what happened. The council had superior numbers, superior technology by their estimation, superior experience. How did humanity defeat them so completely? The one looked at the monument, at all those names, and then back at the young diplomat. Because they fought the war they wanted to fight, and we fought the war we needed to fight. They believed in their superiority, in their right to rule, in their power to destroy any species that challenged them. They were arrogant. And humanity? We were survivors, Day-One said simply. Humanity spent its entire history fighting. Fighting each other, fighting nature, fighting for every scrap of progress we ever made. When the council attacked us, they expected us to fight like them, with honor and rules and predictable tactics. Instead, we fought like humans always have, with everything we had, using every advantage, exploiting every weakness, refusing to stop until the threat was eliminated. That sounds ruthless, Shenra said carefully. It was, Day-One agreed. War is ruthless. The council started a war of extermination, and they discovered that humans are very, very good at exterminating threats. They wanted to make us extinct to preserve their power. He gestured at the monument, at the city beyond, at the ships in orbit that protected it all. Instead, they made us the dominant power in the galaxy. They authored their own extinction as a political force, all because they couldn't accept that other species might eventually become their equals. Shenra was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. Finally, she asked, what advice would you give to species like mine, first speaker? Species that are younger, less powerful? Day-One smiled, and it was a kind smile, not the cold expression he had worn during the war. Don't threaten humanity's survival, and we'll be the best allies you could ask for. We'll share technology, defend your borders, help you grow. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Shenra. We just want to make sure nobody can ever threaten our existence again. The council could have had humanity as a partner. Instead, they chose to make us an enemy, and they paid the price for that choice. The young diplomat bowed and left, carrying those words back to her people. Day-One remained at the monument as the sun set, thinking about the year that had passed and the years to come. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of the Council was over, ended by their own arrogance. The age of humanity had begun, built on the ashes of those who had tried to destroy them.